Hello and welcome to the Ruth MacFit Podcast. Very happy to be here with you today, as always. Now, it is Monday as I'm recording this, and I have had a lovely weekend, but I did do my brunch run, although I didn't get brunch, but I still call it my brunch run. Anyway, I did go for my brunch run and got absolutely drenched, the wettest I've got on a run for a long time. And then yesterday, beautiful weather, same today. So my plan today is to make sure that I get outside for a walk or to do something, because otherwise I'm going to feel I've missed out on that one day of sunshine we might have. Anyway, I've always been someone who has exercised, and I'm not talking here about team sports because that was not my bag growing up, but for a long time, my idea, I guess, of fitness was mostly cardio in the gym. So I joined the gym when I was 16, and I would go in, I'd get on some cardio machine, maybe the rower, cross trainer, around those sort of areas mainly. And I'd do that, and then I'd mix up a little bit of the machine weights at the end. And I continued like this for a little while until I started uni, and then a couple of years in, I could not afford my gym membership. And that's why I started kind of playing and putting in a little bit of running now and again. It started with just kind of dabbling, and then after having my eldest, running became my thing, really. It was efficient. I could do it for 30 minutes and just leave him for a bit. It got me outside, and it felt like me getting that bit of space, to myself when life was full on babies. And if you'd asked me back then what exercise meant, I'd have said to me that was running. That's what it meant to me. And then in 2014, everything did change because I got really poorly. I had something called rheumatic fever, which is an autoimmune response to strep throat. And that meant that running was no longer an option to me. I had really painful joints. So even after the initial illness, my joints were still really sore. I didn't like the idea of doing kind of some more regular movements. I remember getting on a horse and being so scared about that. And I was really starting to feel like I'd lost a piece of myself because I wasn't able to do those things that kept me fit and active. And I did realise that I needed to do something different. I wasn't getting better on my own, so I needed to try something else. And I'd heard and read about the benefits of strength training. So I enlisted the help of a personal trainer, and myself and my husband, we went along to those sessions. We started together, and that one action really did change my life, partly because I had a fantastic personal trainer who I have a lot to thank for, because he actually was the one that encouraged me to train as a PT myself. But I also hadn't realised how good feeling strong could feel. It wasn't just about having muscles. It was about what those muscles allowed me to be able to do. I could move better. I could cope with the aches and pains that I'd been feeling. And I started to feel more like myself again. And I realised something else important that I think we sometimes forget, that the only thing that's protecting my joints were my muscles. And if I wanted to live well and recover and feel like me again, building strength just wasn't optional. Even when I get my back niggles today, which still stems from that time, I think about how much worse they could have been if I wasn't strong, if I hadn't done what I'd done back then. So today I want to talk to you about strength. So today I want to talk about this, about how strength training can transform how we feel, not just in midlife, but in the years ahead. And also, an important point to make here is that if you're already doing some form of strength training, then you are in the minority. So the NHS recommends adults do strength work at least twice a week, but most of us aren't doing this. So if you are, then you are in the minority. But I don't want this podcast episode to focus on what people aren't doing. I really want to make it about the possibilities that are out there, about asking what our life could look like if we did start, and what it feels like, and what it could feel like if we then kept going. So that's what we're going to be chatting about today. Why strength matters as we age, what might be stopping us, and how to start where we are and keep it simple, and why even a little can make a huge difference. When we talk about strength in midlife, I want to be very, very clear. We're not talking about what we should be doing. It's more about what is possible. And the exciting thing here is that the research shows that we have far more control over how we age than we often think. I have a really lovely client, Kate, and when she first started, she couldn't do a wall press up she had really struggled with her consistency in her strength training. And so we broke it down into doing some daily routines, these few exercises each day, and then step by step. And with incredible consistency, she's now messaged me today to say that she has done 10 kneeling press-ups with a band and that she's proud. And she is absolutely right to be proud. Science shows why this sort of progress matters, because from our 30s, we naturally lose around 3 to 8% of our muscle per decade. And it tends to speed up a bit around menopause, around our 50s. This age-related loss of muscle mass is called sarcopenia. And research shows that consistent strength training, even at a very basic level, so literally strength training can help us get younger. Does that make sense? Anyway, but Kate building from those press-ups to banded press-ups isn't just about having stronger muscles in her chest. It is protecting her future independence. So yes, she should be incredibly proud. And actually, she had a funny story recently. She went camping, I believe, in the summer, and the camping chair that she was on, it was like not put up properly or something, and it collapsed and she fell. And she actually counted this as a win as well. She wasn't drunk. It had just broken. But instead of struggling to get back up, she was able to stand up. And I believe she still had the food that was in her hand when she fell. And she laughed about it. And this is something else that is worth remembering, because strength training, getting stronger, is going to significantly reduce our risk of falls and going to make everyday movements far easier. But if we do fall, it's also going to enable us to stand back up, which I think is so important. We always want to be able to get up and down off the floor. And this is the sort of strength that is then going to change how we live. I have got another story that I feel like I'd be remiss not telling you, because she's so inspiring. So I actually work with a lovely lady. I help her with the nutrition coaching. But she didn't start strength training until she was in her 40s. And she joined a gym with her teenage son to keep him company, I believe. And she quickly realised that she was way stronger than she thought and her strength was building. Now she represents her country as a powerlifter, which is just incredible. But I do know that this isn't going to be everyone's end goal. But the reason I wanted to share that with you is I think she's very much proof that you can start in midlife. You can start later. Our body can still build a significant amount of muscle and bone strength. It really is never too late. It's just that the earlier we start, the easier it is. But you really can start at any time. And you see stories about this all the time. Strength training is going to help improve our bone density, which is going to be very important during perimenopause and menopause, when bone loss can actually accelerate. There was actually a study which I really like, which I'm going to share with you. And it showed that strength training and high impact weight bearing exercise can preserve or improve bone density, even without the use of HRT. So every squat that we're doing, every banded exercise is more than just a workout. It is that insurance for our body, our bones, our muscles. And you'll hear again and again about how strength training can boost your metabolism. And it isn't suddenly because you're burning loads of calories at rest because you've got loads more muscle. That is a bit of a oversold myth, I think. There is a slight difference, but it's very small. The main difference is that when you're strong, you feel more capable. You want to move more. You want to walk, you want to mess around, you want to play, you want to be active. And that ripple effect is going to make a huge difference to your long-term health. So when I share that the NHS guidelines of strength training twice a week, I don't want you to hear this as a rule you're failing at. I want you to hear it as proof that you don't need to do loads for it to count. 2 short sessions a week or even a handful of daily movements can massively change your trajectory. Imagine if everyone was doing the minimum that we are encouraged to do. I wonder what aging would look like then. I like to think of it as that we are depositing into the bank of future health, and independence. And I'm not very good at getting people to help me with things anyway, so I want to stay as independent for as long as possible. But do remember, it isn't about ticking every single box. It's going to be creating those choices that feel good now and have you feeling good in the future. And I think that is a really empowering thing. Now, I really want to chat to you about some of the barriers and some of the myths that can get in the way of you starting strength training. Because I think sometimes it's not that we don't want to do it, it's that it's presented to us in a way that feels impossible. Something that I see online all the time, and it upsets me a bit. And that is that you have to lift heavy. And that if you're not lifting heavy, then it doesn't count. And I see this again and again. And I know and I understand that they're just trying to encourage women to not be scared of lifting up weights. And I also understand this message because the way that our muscles continue to get stronger is through something called progressive overload, which just means increasing the challenge over time, whether that's lifting a bit more weight, doing a few more reps, or focusing on form, slowing down the movement with control. You're just looking at improving in the same movement pattern. But I think the way that it's said as you just need to lift heavy can be very off-putting. If I think about when I started strength training after having rheumatic fever, I was worried about everyday movement. I was scared of things like being asked out to go horse riding and getting on a horse. Never mind picking up a heavy barbell. That would have been terrifying. So if somebody had told me at that point that I had to lift heavy, I'd probably have walked straight back out of that gym. And the thing is, heavy is very much relative. If you've never strength trained before, body weight can feel heavy. A small dumbbell might feel like a huge challenge, and that's great, because it means that you're working your muscles where you are at your starting point. This is what they mean by heavy, really. And I actually spoke about this with Andy on our last podcast for the Grow Old Disgracefully podcast, when we were chatting about Pilates. And Andy said, and he's right, by the way, that Pilates is brilliant for mobility and control and body awareness, but it's not the method he'd choose if he was wanting to build significant strength. And the point that I wanted to add to this when I was chatting to Andy is that if you've never trained before, Pilates will make you stronger at first. It's not that you can't get stronger, because you are going to be using your muscles in new ways. In the same way that walking uphill or carrying heavy shopping bags, if your muscles aren't used to it, is going to be strength training for you. But over time, our body is going to adapt, and that's when progressive overload becomes more important. But it's worth saying that if you're moving your muscles and challenging them in some way, then you are building strength. Now, another barrier that I see again and again is time, especially, I might add, for women in midlife. I don't have time to spend hours in the gym. And there's very good news here too. You don't need to. My sister is a great example of this. So is Kate, that I was speaking about earlier. But I'm going to go back to my sister because she was the first person that I did that form of training with. She'd been really struggling with the back pain, and it had become a health scare for her. And we gave her just 3 exercises to do each day. That's it. And guess what? She got stronger, and her back pain massively improved. And she kept going because it was doable. It didn't feel overwhelming. And that is the real power, I guess, of short, simple routines. We can overthink the plan. We can believe that it all has to be perfect, that it has to be the same as that person on Instagram who's training hard all the time. I had a client who asked me recently if it was okay just to repeat the same workout again and again. And I actually said, yes, that's fine, if it means you'll be consistent. And this was a bit of a revelation for her. The thing is, if you are repeating the same workout that you enjoy again and again, that is going to be far more effective than constantly chasing the optimal plan, but then never sticking to it. And I actually was thinking about this because I was reading a book called Tiny Habits, and the author, BJ Fogg, talks about how he started his flossing habit by just flossing one tooth. That was his minimum, which does sound a bit ridiculous, but it really helped him build the habit, and he flosses every day now. And it made me think about my own flossing. Honestly, bear with me, it is relevant. I've got really narrow teeth, especially at the front bottom. And my dentist had told me to use those, I think they're called TPs, the little brushes instead of the floss. And I know that they are better in theory, but I can't get them at the front. So then I'm swapping between one and the other. And every time I try and switch to using those as well as my other floss, which is the optimal thing to do, I get less consistent. So it made me think about whether it is actually optimal if I don't stick to it. And this is the same with our workouts. Told you I was going to come back to it. The best workout is going to be the one you actually do. And I also want to cover another barrier that I think used to come up much more in the past than it does now. I'm hoping that we're moving away from this. But some women do have a genuine fear of bulking up from doing strength training. And occasionally I'll see women mention this at the beginning now, but once they start strength training and they see the changes that their body is making, changing body composition, which is more of that muscle tone that people mention, they feel stronger and they feel more confident in their movement. The fear of bulking up disappears. And that's because in reality, it takes years and years of consistent focused training and nutrition to build that sort of bulk. You need to really want it, right? Really want it. It's not just going to happen by accident. So thinking back over those barriers, if any of them have resonated with you and held you back, I really want you to hear this. You don't need to do it all. I really want you just to start where you are with what you currently have. That might be body weight, short routines, repeating the same workout. This is all going to count and it is all going to make a massive difference. Let's talk about what optimal actually is when it does come to strength training and how that compares to what is going to work in real life. So from a coaching perspective, the most effective way to build strength is to follow the same set of workouts for a set period of time. Usually 6 to 8 weeks. We get more bored before our muscles do, but 6 to 8 weeks is a nice sweet spot. That way you can track your progress, lift a little bit more weight, do an extra rep each week and really see that progression add up. It's structured, it's measurable, and it definitely works. But in reality, life isn't always going to be structured and measurable. Sometimes you open up a new workout plan, you see an exercise that you really don't fancy doing, and it's enough to put you off going. I've seen this happen several times, and I've actually felt like it too. You know, a tiny bit of reluctance can be enough to stop the whole thing before it has even started. And this is why I'm actually making some changes in the app, which are coming over the next month or so. I'm still going to refresh the workout library so that there are new things coming in. But instead of giving just one block for everyone to follow, so whether that's gym or home workouts, I'm going to give a mix of workouts within each of those areas that members can pick and choose from. So there's going to be a range of full body workouts, upper body workouts, lower body workouts, some short, some longer, some with more kit, some with less kit, some completely body weight. And the idea with this is that you've got a choice. If you want the structured, optimal approach by repeating the same workouts each week for 6 weeks, then you absolutely can, and that's brilliant. But if you'd rather mix and match, try a few, find your favourites and stick to those, then that is also brilliant, because the key isn't to be perfect, it's finding a way that you keep showing up. And even now, after years of consistent strength training, I'll sometimes look at my plan and think, oh no, I've got that exercise coming up again. I feel like it a bit today. I'm going to be doing a workout this afternoon and there's a barbell glute bridge and I just don't feel like doing it today. I'm going to do it because that habit is there. I've been doing it long enough to know that I'll just do it anyway and I'm not going to skip it. But in the past, that feeling might have been enough to make me put off and dread that whole session. And I really don't want that for any of the members that I coach. I don't want a single exercise to become the reason that someone gives up. So yes, repeating the same workouts and building gradually is the gold standard. But if what keeps you consistent is choosing the 20-minute version on a busy day instead of the 40-minute one, or sticking to your favorite workout routine because you know you'll do it, that's not you not doing enough. That's a smart move. Optimal is great, but real life is always going to win. It's always going to get in the way. And the thing about strength training is that either way, whatever you do, you're still going to get stronger. And actually, some of the pillars of the no crap cake method fit very nicely when we talk about strength training. They're not just nice sayings, they're practical ways of making this work in real life. The first one is make it fun. One of my lovely members this summer had such a light bulb moment around this about how much easier it is to do things when they make us feel good. Change is easier when we feel good doing it, right? And she used to believe that unless it was a full strength session or proper cardio workout, it didn't count. But she booked a paddle court with the family, played, laughed so hard that she could barely breathe. And afterwards she was saying, oh my goodness, that still felt like a workout. Because it was. Movement doesn't always have to be serious or structured to make a difference. And now she's keeping that. That's something she's really trying to embody, making it part of her life. And that's both fun and fitness, which is brilliant. The second pillar is there is no failure, only feedback. And this one is huge when it comes to strength training. Sometimes we'll beat ourselves up for skipping a workout, but it's definitely worth asking, why did we skip it? Was it because we were lazy, or was it because we were actually exhausted, overscheduled, or didn't have the time or energy that day? This isn't failure. This is us learning what we need to consider. It tells us what's realistic right now so we can make a plan and learn for it in the future. And the same goes with how we see our progress. Maybe you feel like you're rubbish at squats, but you're just not as experienced as your friend, or not as strong as you used to be when you used to do it back in the past when you were training more regularly. This isn't failure either. This is, again, feedback. It means that you've got room to progress. And showing up consistently is going to be the real win here. So in October, we're actually doing a challenge in the app, and we're going to be reading the book, The Gap and the Gain. And we're going to then apply the principles and the ideas. So the gap, for those of you that don't know, is where we focus on what we haven't achieved yet. And the gain is seeing how far we've already come. So with strength training, focusing on the gain, those small improvements in our form, in our confidence, in consistency, that's what's going to keep us going, because it's going to make us feel good. And then the final pillar that I think links so nicely with strength training is making choices, not reactions. It's a big one, especially in midlife. It's so easy to scroll online, see what someone else is doing, lifting huge weights, whatever it is, fancy Instagram type moves, and you feel like you're getting it all wrong. But you're not. The choice is yours to do what works for your body, your lifestyle, and your goals. To make a choice, stick with it, and to trust that. It's also about making realistic choices. So instead of reacting with guilt, like maybe you did plan to do a 40-minute workout, but the day has run away with you. You could either spend time beating yourself up and do nothing, or you could choose to do a 20-minute version instead and make sure that you get something in, or even just a couple of exercises. And again, this isn't failure. It's making a choice that is right for you. Sometimes we beat ourselves up about not doing something that was never realistic with the time and the energy we had anyway. And sometimes I think we just need to laugh at ourselves. We'll tell ourselves that we can smash this epic workout at 9 p.m. when the kids are in bed, knowing also that normally at 9 p.m. we will be in our PJs with a cup of herbal tea and properly winding down for the day. There is nothing wrong with telling ourselves this, as long as we then use it to make conscious choices that we can feel proud of, not empty promises that leave us feeling guilty. So we learn from what isn't working to build something that does. So when you bring these few pillars together, make it fun, no failure, only feedback, make choices and not reactions, then strength training stops being this intimidating thing that you have to do and starts becoming something that can really fit in your life. And that is going to be when it sticks. So if there's one thing that I want you to take away from today's episode, it's that strength training really does matter, not because it ticks that guideline box or because you're just constantly told that you need to do it, because it changes how we live. It makes us feel so much better. And it doesn't have to be scary or overwhelming or this big thing. You start where you are with what you've got, and all of that is going to count. So today we have talked about why muscle is so important as we age, the myths and the barriers that can put us off, and how optimal is great, but real life is always going to win. And we've also looked at some of the no crap cake pillars so that you can make it fun and see every step you make as feedback and then choose what actually works for you. Now I want you to do something. I want you to picture yourself in 10 years and then 20 years and 30 years from now. Do you see yourself struggling with everyday tasks, feeling limited by those aches and stiffness or weakness? Or do you see yourself carrying the shopping in one go, running around with the grandkids, climbing to the top of that hill for that incredible view, or saying yes to all of those adventures because you know that your body can handle it? The future isn't just down to luck, it's down to the choices that we're making now. And I feel really passionate about this because we really can change the way we age. We can be stronger for longer. Every less than perfect workout, every very short session that you still show up for are going to be deposits into that stronger and more independent future. And I know a lot of people go into strength training and looking at health because they want to be smaller. But I think by midlife, we've done so many diets that we're done with just a goal of thin, and we want to actually feel good and stay there too, which is why I am on a mission to end the all or nothing thinking and get us doing what we can. And this is what we do inside the No Crap Cake method. And I am making lots of changes right now to give members even more flexibility. So whether you love the structure of a 6-week block or you want the freedom for pick and mix workouts, you'll actually have both those options, because what matters isn't perfection, it's sticking with what feels good for you. So my challenge for you this week is to simply ask yourself, what's one small strength action I can start today? Maybe it's booking a class, maybe it's trying a PJ workout at home, maybe it's doing some worktop press-ups while the kettle boils? And if you do it, come and tell me. Let me know. Drop me a DM on Instagram or reply to the podcast email. I would love to be cheering you on, because you really, really can change the way you age, and strength training is one of the best tools you'll ever have to do this. As always, if this podcast has resonated with you, then do please comment and review it, share it with your friends, and come and find me on Instagram at Ruth MacFit, because like I said, I would love to hear from you and cheer you on too. I will speak to you very soon. Goodbye.